What if I told you that the electric car everyone's been waiting for is already being tested on public roads right now, and almost nobody recognized it? Yeah, you heard that right. While most people thought they were looking at just another test vehicle with some weird camouflage, something far more exciting was happening right under our noses. Picture this. You're scrolling through social media, and you come across yet another spy shot of what looks like a slightly modified compact electric sedan. Nothing special, right? Wrong. Because what people initially dismissed as routine testing turned out to be one of the most anticipated vehicles in automotive history. A car that could completely change who gets to drive electric and how much they'll pay for it. So what makes this particular test vehicle so special? Let me break it down for you, because once you see what I'm about to show you, you'll understand why this changes everything. Here's what caught everyone's attention initially. This thing's sitting way lower to the ground than you'd expect. We're talking about a vehicle that's practically hugging the pavement at the front end, measuring somewhere between 4¼ to 4½ inches of ground clearance. Now, compare that to your typical compact sedan, which sits at about 5½ inches, or those crossover vehicles everyone's buying these days that hover around 6 to 8 inches off the ground. This isn't just some random design choice either. There's a reason this car is sitting so low, and it's way more interesting than just aesthetics. Think about it for a second. What would require a vehicle to have its front end positioned that close to the road surface? The answer might surprise you, because we're potentially looking at technology that could eliminate one of the biggest annoyances of owning an electric vehicle. I'm talking about wireless charging capability. No more fumbling with heavy cables in the rain. No more forgetting to plug in your car at night. Just park your vehicle over a charging pad in your garage or parking spot, and boom, it starts charging automatically. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wireless charging for cars has been talked about for years, and it's always been too expensive and too inefficient to make sense. But here's where things get interesting. After acquiring a specialized company that focuses specifically on wireless charging technology, the engineers have been working on pushing efficiency rates up to around 96%. That's a massive jump from the 90 to 92% that older wireless systems could achieve. At that level of efficiency, wireless charging suddenly becomes practical for everyday use. And here's the genius part. This budget-focused vehicle is actually the perfect candidate for wireless charging. Why? Because the target customer is someone living in an urban environment, probably parking in tight spaces, maybe in a shared garage or narrow driveway. These are people who would absolutely love the convenience of not dealing with charging cables. Plus, when you're competing against ultra-cheap electric vehicles coming from overseas, you need features that set you apart. Wireless charging? That's a premium feature at a non-premium price. But let's dig deeper into what's happening underneath this test vehicle, because that's where the real magic happens. If you look closely at the underbody, you'll notice something unusual. There's this incredibly smooth, continuous surface running along the bottom front section. This isn't just about aerodynamics, although that certainly helps with efficiency. This smooth surface serves a critical purpose for wireless charging. It minimizes electromagnetic interference and protects the charging coil that would be integrated into the vehicle's floor. Without this careful design, wireless charging simply wouldn't work effectively. And here's something else that's absolutely fascinating. The way the battery pack is integrated into this vehicle's structure. Most electric vehicles treat the battery as this separate, heavy thing that you have to find space for within the car's frame. It's like trying to fit a giant suitcase into a closet that wasn't designed for it. But what if instead of treating the battery as something extra, you made it part of the vehicle's actual skeleton? That's exactly what's happening here. This approach, which was first unveiled during a major presentation back in 2020, completely reimagines how electric vehicles are built. The battery pack literally becomes the floor of the vehicle. It's not sitting on top of a separate floor structure. It is the structure. Think about the implications of this for a moment. In a traditional vehicle, you've got the road, then you've got the floor pan, then a separate battery enclosure with its protective casing, then structural reinforcement, and finally the cabin floor where passengers actually sit. All of that stacked up together eats up about 5 to 7 inches of vertical space that's essentially wasted. By making the battery structural, that entire stack gets compressed down to somewhere between 3¼ to just under 4 inches. Suddenly, you've freed up several inches of interior space without making the car any bigger on the outside. That means you can have taller seating positions for better visibility, more headroom for passengers, especially in the back seat, or you can make the whole vehicle more compact while maintaining the same interior space. It's like getting a much bigger apartment without actually paying for more square footage. The numbers here are actually pretty incredible. Based on careful analysis of the test vehicle's proportions, particularly looking at the window line and how it relates to the roof line, experts estimate this car could offer 15 to 18% more vertical cabin space compared to other vehicles with similar wheelbases. That's a massive difference you would absolutely feel as a passenger. And there's more. The type of battery cells being used here represent another leap forward. These newer cells use an advanced manufacturing process that achieves approximately 16% higher energy density compared to previous generations. What does that mean in practical terms? It means you can get the same driving range with a smaller, lighter battery pack. Smaller battery means lower cost. Lower cost means a more affordable vehicle. See how it all connects? But there's another benefit to this structural battery approach that you might not immediately think about. When the battery mass is integrated directly into the vehicle's floor structure, rather than sitting in a separate compartment, the center of gravity drops significantly. We're talking about a reduction of somewhere between 1.2 to 1.8 inches. That might not sound like much, but in terms of vehicle dynamics, it's absolutely huge. A lower center of gravity means the car leans less in corners. It means more predictable handling. It means the vehicle feels more planted and stable, especially during emergency maneuvers. You know how some cars just feel solid and confidence-inspiring when you're driving spiritedly? A lot of that comes down to center of gravity. By integrating the battery structurally, you get sports car dynamics in what's supposed to be an affordable everyday vehicle. That's pretty remarkable. Looking at the prototype more closely, you'll notice the door sills are positioned noticeably lower than you'd expect. At first, this might seem like a minor detail, but it actually tells us something important. Lower door sills mean easier entry and exit from the vehicle, which is especially appreciated by older passengers or anyone with mobility concerns. But it also suggests that the engineers have managed to minimize the vertical space needed for the structural battery integration. They've optimized the packaging so effectively that they could afford to lower the door sills without compromising the battery or interior space. Now let's talk about how this thing rides and handles, because that's where some really clever engineering comes into play. Here's the challenge. Luxury vehicles can use expensive, complex suspension systems to smooth out rough roads and provide a comfortable ride. Air suspension, adaptive dampers with multiple sensors, sophisticated electronic controls, all of that costs money. Lots of money. But when you're building an affordable vehicle, you can't just throw expensive hardware at the problem. You need to be smarter about it. The suspension setup on this test vehicle suggests a really interesting approach. Instead of using costly air suspension, the engineers appear to be using frequency-selective shock absorbers. These are dampers that can adjust their behavior based on the frequency of the bumps and impacts they're dealing with. Small, high-frequency vibrations get filtered out differently than large, slow body motions. This provides improved comfort without the expense of full active suspension. But here's where it gets really cool. Imagine a suspension system that knows about the pothole 3 blocks ahead before you even get there. Sounds like science fiction, right? But it's actually possible with the massive fleet of vehicles constantly collecting data about road conditions. Every car that drives over a pothole, speed bump, or rough patch of road can report that information back. Then, when you're approaching that same location, your vehicle can proactively adjust its suspension settings to handle it better. This isn't some far-off future technology either. The infrastructure is already in place. Vehicles stay connected via cellular networks, and they're constantly sharing data. The system doesn't require expensive new sensors or complicated hardware. It's just smart software making use of information that's already being collected. The suspension adjustments get sent as lightweight tuning instructions over the cellular connection, and the vehicle adapts accordingly. Better ride quality, better battery protection, all without adding significant cost to the vehicle. Let's shift gears and talk about something that might not seem exciting at first, but actually makes a huge difference in real-world use: thermal management. I know, it sounds boring. But stick with me here, because this is actually fascinating and has a direct impact on how far you can drive. Here's the problem with electric vehicles. The battery pack needs to be kept within a specific temperature range to work efficiently and maintain its longevity. Too hot or too cold, and you lose range and potentially damage the battery over time. Meanwhile, the passenger cabin needs to be comfortable, which means heating in winter and cooling in summer. Both of these systems require energy, and in an electric vehicle, all that energy comes from the same place: the battery. The more energy you spend on heating and cooling, the less range you have for actually driving. Traditional electric vehicles often struggle with this, especially in extreme weather. You've probably heard stories about electric cars losing significant range in cold weather. A lot of that comes down to inefficient thermal management. So how do you solve this without adding expensive, complex systems? The test vehicle shows signs of some seriously sophisticated thermal engineering. We're talking about multi-layer composite barriers that work in several ways simultaneously. First, there are radiant heat reflection layers that bounce heat away. Then there are convective air gaps that provide insulation through trapped air, which is one of the best insulators available. And finally, there are phase change materials that can absorb or release heat as they change states, helping to buffer temperature swings. All of this works together to create what engineers call thermal decoupling. Basically, it means the battery pack can maintain its optimal operating temperature independently from the passenger cabin. The battery stays in its happy zone, while passengers enjoy comfortable temperatures without the two systems fighting each other. This is achieved through advanced insulation materials, including some that use aerogel technology, which is basically solidified air and one of the best insulators known to science. The result of all this thermal wizardry? Improved energy efficiency that could extend the vehicle's range by 3 to 4%. That might not sound like a lot, but when you're trying to maximize range in an affordable vehicle, every percentage point matters. Plus, the cabin climate control system uses less energy overall, meaning you stay comfortable without constantly worrying about what it's doing to your available range. Here's what really sets this vehicle apart from everything else in its price range. It's not just one clever innovation. It's how all these different systems work together. The wireless charging capability is enabled by the low front clearance and smooth underbody design. The structural battery integration creates space for wireless charging while also improving interior packaging and handling dynamics. The adaptive suspension protects the structural battery while providing better ride quality. The thermal management systems ensure efficient operation of everything else while maximizing range. Each innovation solves multiple problems simultaneously. That's the difference between just adding features and actually engineering a cohesive solution. It's like the difference between a collection of nice furniture pieces and a well-designed room where everything works together harmoniously. Most manufacturers approach vehicle development by solving problems one at a time. Need more interior space? Make the car bigger. Want better handling? Add more expensive suspension hardware. Need more range? Install a bigger battery. Each solution adds cost and complexity. But when you fundamentally rethink how a vehicle is designed and built, you can solve multiple problems at once with elegant solutions that actually reduce cost and complexity rather than increasing it. This holistic approach to engineering is what enables an affordable vehicle to offer features and capabilities that were previously only available in much more expensive cars. It's not about taking shortcuts or using cheaper materials. It's about being smarter with the engineering from the ground up. Now, I should mention that we don't have final confirmed specifications yet. Pricing, exact range numbers, production timing, all of that is still being finalized. But based on what we can observe from the test vehicles and what we know about the technology being developed, the picture is becoming increasingly clear. This is shaping up to be a vehicle that could genuinely democratize electric transportation. Think about what that means for a moment. For years, electric vehicles have been either expensive luxury items or compromised budget options with limited range and features. What we're looking at here is potentially something different. An affordable electric vehicle that doesn't feel like a compromise. One that offers advanced technology, good range, practical features like wireless charging, and engaging driving dynamics, all at a price point that actually makes sense for average buyers. If executed properly, this could be the vehicle that finally pushes electric cars into mainstream adoption. Not because people feel like they should buy electric for environmental reasons, but because it's genuinely the best choice for their needs and budget. That's how you create real change in an industry. The implications go beyond just one manufacturer, too. When you prove that you can build an affordable, desirable electric vehicle profitably, it forces everyone else to up their game. Competition drives innovation, and innovation benefits consumers. We could be looking at the start of a new era in automotive transportation, where electric vehicles aren't the expensive alternative, but rather the obvious choice. As more information becomes available about final specifications, official pricing, and production timelines, you can bet we'll be covering every development. This is potentially one of the most significant vehicles to launch in years, and it's going to be fascinating to watch how it performs in the real world. So that's the story behind those mysterious test vehicles you might have seen photos of online. What looked like just another prototype turns out to be something far more significant. A glimpse at how the next generation of electric vehicles will be engineered, and proof that affordable doesn't have to mean compromised. If you found this deep dive interesting and want to stay updated on all the latest developments in electric vehicle technology and automotive innovation, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell. There's a lot more exciting stuff coming down the pipeline, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one where we'll continue exploring the future of transportation.